Welcome back to Channel Water. Today I want to continue talking about my personal journey into water and mainly about the identity. What does it mean to have this identity of water? Or in a way, the way I see it is not having an identity. So let me dive into that and explain that further. All human beings are born into a certain equation. So when you're born, you're told that you belong to a certain family, city, nation, nationality, religion, cult, anything. It could be very spiritual, it could be very rigid, you can be born in a dictatorship, you're given a gender, a name, even a number for the country you belong to, a passport. We're given so many things that basically describe who we are and what we are. And that fits to the equation of human beings in this material world. There is a certain order, and order is good. It's what we need to work within that specific equation. A lot of times we forget the bigger picture and we get too attached to that order, and we take it to a place that is not positive anymore, to a place where it starts conflicting. It starts conflicting ourselves, within ourselves. So when I walk in the world, I don't see anything as a separate entity from me. Everything that I look at is a version of myself. It's part of myself in a different vessel, in a different vehicle, in a different timeline, in a different body. So whether it's a plant, animal, person, or even a cloud, that is just a different form of myself. But with the identity we're born into, that whole package of your vehicle, sometimes we lose that knowledge and we forget that. There is a purpose to that when it comes to helping us moving forward as a society and build the architecture that we need to build. So there is competition and there is a ways to motivate us or the whole nature. Even plants have motivation, animals, to motivate you to grow, because that's what nature does. It grows. And that growth is moving water into architecture. More plants, more animal, more people, more housing. We're moving forward into architecture. So there is a sense of positive side to competition, positive side to motivation. But then we also see the negative side of it. When we get too attached to the illusion of the identity and we start fighting with each other, we start destroying, and we forget who we really are. So we lose our grace, we lose the love, we develop a lot of judgment, and it's really about forgetting. We forget who we are, we believe the story, we believe the illusion, and we take it too far. In my personal experience, I was born in a small country, and it's a small country that's also surrounded by enemies. So it's like an island. We're landlocked, and then we're born into a very specific identity of the idea of being Jewish, and it creates a very strong sense of identity. Again, that capsule that you're born into, specifically over there, is very strong. The smaller it is, the stronger it is too. So it was even harder breaking out of that and seeing the connection between yourself and the bigger picture of humanity, to see the greater connections between all of us and eliminating separation, basically taking away anything that separates me from you. So the idea that I'm from a certain country and you from another country, that separation. The idea that I belong to a certain religion, to a certain gender, sex. There's so many things that we have that separate us from others. And like I said, some separation is positive in the sense of creating order, but there's certain separation that starts pushing you away from the greater picture of humanity and the greater consciousness in that sense. So I worked very hard to walk away and shedding off any layer of separation, and also questioning what does it mean? So, for example, what does it mean to be Jewish? For me, other than saying I'm different than you, it didn't mean anything. So there's certain traditions, there's stories, there's certain beliefs, but if you truly believe that all humanity is one big body, and we all have the same connection to whatever the source is, the greater consciousness, then I don't see any reason for me to say that I'm different from you. So for me to say that I am something that you're not doesn't serve my purpose in life, doesn't serve my connection to you. There isn't absolutely nothing that is different between me and you. Absolutely nothing. There's nothing special about me different of you. We're exactly the same. Not only that, we are the same body, we are the same identity, we are the same consciousness in different vessels and vehicles. So taking off those layers and also dealing with the environment, which usually has a hard time with that because that's their identity. And whenever you try to move away or question identity, you usually get a lot of backlash and you get a lot of judgment and people start questioning you. But for me, it was important to stay strong in my journey and not let any of those things set me back, and always freeing myself further and further from anything that was basically there to hold me back and separate me from the rest. Anytime that there was something that created separation, I just moved it away, stepped away from it, and always stepped closer to you, always stepped closer to a place where we are the same. We are on the same level. We are equals. We had different experiences in life. We have different outcomes. That's what creates our personality, is that accumulation of experiences since we were born until now. So there are differences. There are differences in ability because we have different vehicles, but there's no difference in dignity and in the respect and the equality that we all deserve to have. So it's a very tricky situation we're talking about, where we need to identify the differences between our vehicles, but also acknowledge the similarity and the equality and the dignity we all have from being the same consciousness in those different vehicles. So that difficulty brought me to a place where water was a way to verbalize and explain something that was so beyond words, but water was the one thing that can, in this physical world, represent that eternal, timeless, equal soul, consciousness that we all have. And more than that, it's in our body. We have it. It's actually, this whole body is just a shell. It's a bag of water with bones and structure and architecture. But the water in me and the water in you is the same. Water is timeless. It has no gender. It has no sex. It has no identity other than itself, the thing that it is and never changes. It has no form. It has no age. It's just the perfect example. As we look at the cycle of water through nature, as it flows through plants, into animals, into people, back to the ground, back to the river, back to the ocean, back to the clouds, to the rain. The cycle of water is the cycle of the soul as we describe it. As we describe, when we die and leave this body, we go back to the ocean. That ocean of where all the people that passed away and the people that have not been born yet, that is a real place. In the ocean, in the rivers, in the clouds. So we can see how we can use water as a symbol. Even if it's not the thing itself, it doesn't matter. It's a way to see that your body, the differences between you and me, are just architecture. Your skin color, my skin color, your gender, sex, anything that is physical And as far as appearance, is architecture. It's a building. So I won't judge you by your car, by your house, or by your body. Your ability will be different than mine because we don't have the same bodies. There's a full spectrum of what bodies and vehicles we're born into, because there's a full spectrum of work we need to do in these bodies. Going back to identity, it's been interesting to see how over the last decade we have been slowly, piece by piece, trying to find equality and justice for certain identities, whether they are within race, within gender, within sex, within anything, disability, or we have seen that we're trying one piece at a time to get to that place where we have equality and dignity for everyone. The way that I dealt with those issues was to change my identity to water, to basically not identify with anything that is of this vehicle, of this body. So finding the one thing that we have in common and letting go of everything else. So I'm born into this body. I know this body is a male and it has certain abilities, but it's not who I am beyond it. It's a temporary place, it's a temporary vehicle that is operated for a specific purpose. Beyond that, I belong to something that is you. We're one of the same, and when we leave this body, we go to that place of being one entity. And I think that's the beauty of it, when you truly realize that when you go back from here, it is still you, but that you is also me. We are that one thing. And there's a great sense of joy coming home, a feeling of love when you go back to that place. Because here, now, we are separated. And in that separation, there is loneliness, there is some sadness, there is a longing back, there is a reason to all the feelings we have that are not positive and that are the outcome of that separation into the separate vehicles. So it's important to remind ourselves once in a while who we truly are and what this body is, what the limitations of it, the source of the certain loneliness or sadness that some feel, to understand that this is the temporary place that we're in now. As we're trying to figure out the meaning of life and the bigger picture, you are in the place that is not the constant, that is not what life is about. You are in a temporary place away from who you really are, and a place where you actually know everything, and a place that you are the greater consciousness. So when you go back, you immediately oh, now I get it. Now I understand. You go back to the place where all is known, all is possible, and all is love in that sense. So I think that right now we are still in a transition place. We're not yet at the end of that journey. When we talk about identity, you will see that society is still evolving in figuring out what it is and who it is. And hopefully we get closer and closer to a place where we are all one and the same, at least when it comes to our dignity, our responsibility, and our part within society. We will never reach equality when it comes to ability and to what this vehicle is. There are so many different ways that we are different in the material world. Because it could be your intelligence, your mental health, your physical abilities. There's so many different things we can do, and you see it with the different professions that we have. The range is so big, especially when we look at it from entertainment to sports to engineering to design it's endless. And you see how different we are in that way. But that's not what defines who we are and our relationships. And that's why it's important to talk about dignity and not ability. We can't expect everyone to be the same in ability, but we have to demand that everyone will be the same when it comes to dignity. For me, it doesn't matter how many times people will laugh about it or make fun of it, but I will keep identifying myself as nothing else but water. I don't belong to anything smaller than the whole body of water. There is one body of water on this planet and in the universe, and that's the only thing I belong to. Anything smaller is less. Anything smaller is a division, a separation. Any religion or section or any of those things, they are just there to separate you. And I believe that probably there will be a movement and a way that will create a coming back to that being of a bigger and one body of consciousness. And whenever we find that, that's something that I will support. But until then, the only thing I can say and be part of is the ocean and atmosphere. It's one body of water, and that's who we are. That's what we are. I will also make a video that describes the full spectrum and range of personalities, and basically what people see now as the way they define themselves through gender, sex, their body. There's a full spectrum that comes from when you are, before you're even in this body, there's a full spectrum from basically feminine to masculine. And then the body itself has a full spectrum between feminine and masculine. And from any point of your, basically the spirit of how feminine or masculine you are, can land on any point of body of how feminine and masculine it is. So you get infinite combinations. And now we're trying to brand each one of those combinations and try to fight and give each one of those combinations its own rights and its own equality, when we really need to step away from any branding and any labels, any separation, any ideas of being special, different, unique, into a place where we understand that we're all of one ocean, and just like light can be open to a full spectrum of colors, so does consciousness into a full spectrum of personalities and what you call identities. So I will make a separate video about that and the idea of personality and why we have such a strong sense of individual and each one of us with its own personality. But like I said, it's mainly the accumulation of memories and experiences within this vehicle that creates that illusion of a personality. But when you shed off this vehicle, you come out of this body, you basically you download all of those memories. And that's what people describe of seeing their life flashing in front of them. It's really like walking through a hallway that has all the images and memories of the life you lived, and you walked through them and you leave this building into a place where you're back to your timeless spirit self that is one. In today's video, I didn't have a specific purpose other than just expanding and talking a bit more just from the heart about how I feel and what it means for me to be water, to identify as water, and the importance of, for me, not to be labeled as anything else. I come from a certain country, I was born into a certain religion, but I'm none of those things. There's nothing that separates me from you. I have no sense of difference or that there's something about me that is different or special or better or less. I see everyone as equal being. And more than that, I don't see you as somebody else. I see you as myself. Through a different experience, some are good, some are bad. Either way, the love that I have for you and for myself is the same and is the most important thing I have. Walking through the world without it is very difficult. It's very challenging. And the only thing I would wish for everyone is to love themselves. Because then I know that you love me too. Thank you very much for watching today. We'll see you soon.